From laser scanning to virtual reality, 3D models and other digital data captures are quickly becoming must-have technologies in our industry. Globally, ExxonMobil has spent tremendous resources on independent 3D efforts, from capture to creation, and even purchased visual assets. These 3D models help us gain better insights, make informed decisions, visualize disparate data, and streamline innovation. However, many of our 3D assets are stored in various locations and used locally when they could be leveraged across ExxonMobil facilities. As part of a company-wide initiative, we're establishing a digital reality ecosystem, which will serve as a foundation for our 3D visual assets platform. This ecosystem will help us capture 3D models in formats that everyone can use, centralize where they are stored, and automate the way they are delivered, so they can be used by anyone, at any time, from anywhere. This ecosystem will allow us to move toward a more visual way of working with contextualized data, which will be essential to our success for corporate scale and integration, now and in the future.
Today, we have spent millions of dollars across our facilities capturing scans, photogrammetry, photos, and stitching it together. The struggle we have is in a lot of cases, those are single use only. Really not getting the value out of that 3D image because we haven't really thought of how we're going to sustain or connect those to a more sustainable database.
Coming out of our capital projects, we frequently have this 3D model that has all of this capability and data stored in it, but our operating organizations don't really have a place to store it or use it. They're typically left on an external storage drive or on a LAN share, or even worse, we don't even receive them.
One of the biggest components of turnaround planning is just physically understanding the location of people, materials, and equipment before, during, and then after a turnaround. Historically, the only way we've been able to get that information is to physically walk out to the unit with a tape measure and take measurements, and then go back to a desk or an office and then have conversations about where we might place materials and components and things like that.
3D models or laser scans, we've all seen them separated and segregated into different parts of the business.
What we want to do with this project is to take the best-in-class solutions that the sites, frankly, are already experimenting with and using and scale them quickly around the world.
Moving towards a visual way of working means to me bringing the data that we have today, our P&IDs, our manufacturing record books, to our workforce through a more intuitive platform, like our 3D model. So being able to click on a piece of equipment and find the references that you want versus having to dig through libraries and understand how someone else may have organized and stored that data. By centralizing the storage and making them accessible to our operating and maintenance organizations in a way that is a lighter lift for them in terms of the technology, would allow them to open a door to a whole new way of working.
The new way with the DRE effort will be combining all those different ways people have used this in the past into one central repository, which will help collaboration, communication, safety, everything.
If you had every piece of information available at your fingertips in a way that you could visualize in a 3D space to really optimize how you interacted with the equipment, optimize the layouts of your facilities, all that data will be made available to anyone anywhere in the world.
With 3D reality capture, with 3D scanning, anybody on the turnaround planning team has access to that kind of dimensional information. That really unlocks a huge amount of value from just the efficiency point of being able to coordinate many different vendors and understand the coordination of those materials and the people and where those items are placed during a turnaround. This project is not about inventing technology. It's about scaling commercially available technology very quickly. And if there's something that ExxonMobil does pretty well is once we make up our mind to scale something, we've got the rigor and the systems in place to make it scale. And then I really do think we can extract significant value in a very short period of time.
DRE is exciting because it's opening that door to the future of how ExxonMobil can really take on these challenges.
It starts with us having a good foundation where the data that we have today is protected, it's saved, and it's put in a format that we can use for the vision of where we're going tomorrow.
We do have a vision of how a 3D model will become the cornerstone of how we do work in the future. The ask that I really have of the organization is really to be a part of the future. How do you become a part of the future of the guardrails or where we're moving? And quite frankly, avoid becoming the silo that we won't be able to sustain. Good morning. I thought it was always, fitting that before you start talking about a concept around moving to the more visual way of working is to actually show it, right? This little vignette that we pulled together is one where we used internal and external with a number of our suppliers to really communicate what is that vision. Now, the vision that we have pulled together, some of you are going to find that the principles and the framework is very similar to that started back in 2015 when OPA was first brought on board, right? The concepts around promoting innovation, it's allowing effortlessly integrating best-in-class solutions together, preserving the sovereignty around data and applications within an asset owner, and quite frankly, underpinned by how you're going to actually sustain and keep this up and living. These are the same principles that the Open Asset Digital Twin Working Group is also aspiring for. And the ask that I have everybody in this room is get on board and be a part of the journey. Now, in terms of what this looks like, let me show you a simple diagram here that talks a little bit around, some of the key pillars in action. You'll see on the far left here, this is centered around independent, agnostic capture, storage, deliver, enriched with data to consumption. And the keys that I want you to see on that is really looking at the underlying, the feedback loops. This is reuse of what I would say is content over and over again. This fundamental in terms of these pillars, we believe, is the basis for an open asset digital twin ecosystem. Now, through all of those stages, interoperability must be free from custom integration. This is an area where, frankly, we believe, based on open standards, that we can accelerate, business value as well as opportunity for more suppliers to compete in this environment. Now, it's one of those I can give you a choice. Do you want the red pill or the blue pill? Right? I think from a standpoint of, as we've heard before, in the current day of age, we are seeing where, AI, ML agents deployed, containerized in discrete opportunities actually accelerates the value of this entire ecosystem. To me, these are the critical components associated with how, as an industry, we have the opportunity to move forward. Now, many of you in the room are sitting there going, okay, I see this, etc., but maybe it's still a little vague in terms of where we're headed. So let me look at, another industry. Everybody here travels, has been around. Do you guys remember when, right? Back in the day, you had to go, anybody remember the AAA flip charts? You went down there. How about MapQuest? You guys are like, type it in, you're gonna print it out, put it in your car because you're about to go on a journey, right? And then, maybe it's just in my car, but the picture to the right, like, Dad is never lost, right? So, despite that we may not be going the right direction, we're never lost. We may be wandering, but we're never lost, right? So, but if you look at that in terms of in our consumer lives, of how we have changed the way we've traveled, let's look at it where we are today, right? Just an example, right? This is an area where, quite frankly, you are getting an imagery that tells you not just where you're going, but when you're actually going to get there, right? The technology coming together. And on the right-hand side, you even have the capability of getting dynamic real-time information. I mean, what would be, if it wasn't dynamic, and finding out that a speed trap was set 3 days ago on your is probably not going to be as useful to you, right? Now, in today's world, you can combine that with what I would say is Gen AI. So, for example, a common in my vehicle is not just where I'm going, how safely, when I'll get there, but I need to make detours along the way. Like when I ask my, generative AI solution, where is, the highest quality gas at the best price? The only answer is Exxon, right? You saw that? Sorry, guys. It's got to be true. It came from, an LLM, right? So it's the highest probable answer, right? But if you think about that and really think about how you used to travel, and now, as part of traveling and going in destinations, how much have you reduced the cognitive load of you actually traveling? I know Dr. Carroll's out here someplace, and we had this whole discussion last year around, fundamentally, are we using technology to reduce cognitive load of our employees and our workers, right? This is a key cornerstone, and think about it in your personal lives in terms of how you get from A to B. This is all of how we are adopting and transforming the way we work. So, what does it look like for the future? Autonomous cars? Capabilities that we haven't dreamt of? When we stand back and look at this and say, well, what are the big movers or pillars that are really transforming that? I'll tell you that the first one that comes up is reality first. Right? I'll say that again. Reality first. If I go through a lot of the transformations and stuff that's going on, reality first is where we believe the heartbeat of this starts. Integrated with engineering, and now you have a more capable ability than you had by either of those independently by themselves. Geospatial awareness. This is an area we believe is going to continue to grow. Let's not just burden our employees with inundated information, but let's make sure we give them the information where they need it, when they need it. And I think that is an activity that we can all sit there and appreciate back to our traveling days of me pulling up into Orlando and saying, I want to go to a restaurant, and it comes up and says, yes, you're in Paris, France. It's like, okay, that's not very useful, right? The same is for our employees and workers in the plant. If we are going to make them superhuman, we have got to give them the capability and the technology to change the way they work. All of this, integrated with data, as you go through a lot of these systems, it's not one system. It's open, interoperable data, and that can be accelerated with AI, ML. So, questions for us. Are we, as an industry, truly unlocking the value of technology enhancements? I smile every time Rob tells me about yes, we have been transforming in terms of our digital, our DTC, and yet we deliver things in PDFs, right? I mean, it's, unfortunately, we've all been there, right, in terms of capability. I think this is an area where, are we doing digitalization for digitalization's sake, or are we physically changing the way we work in the field? Another key question. Do we think the energy industry is leading or lagging in this effort? I think it's one where I know that I get an opportunity to spend quite a bit of time outside of our industry, and I will tell you it's very humbling. It's very humbling because our industry has a problem. Some may call it a disease. And that disease is not built by us, right? I mean, I think this is an area where, quite frankly, we need to be thinking as an industry more about integration and interoperability and less about us trying to reinvent the wheel when it already exists. And I think lastly, it's like, as you heard, my colleagues before me talking about, I don't think this is an area where any one company, one supplier can do alone. And if we are truly going to change the way we work in terms of scaling, this is going to take everybody in the room. So let's take a couple of examples. Let's go back to those couple of principles I talked about. Reality first, interoperable data, geospatial awareness, AI, ML. And let's see what you can actually do with it. So we were talking about projects earlier, integrated with engineering data. So tell me, when you combine all of those, taking reality first, why do I still hear people talking about as-built? How many people have been in the field saying, hey, I've done this work, I've spent a fortune on my digital content at my facility. So why are we still talking about the term as-built? In fact, I know there's a couple of groups that are having a debate of what it actually means. And I think this is the area where we need to get out of that combined in terms of capabilities to, quite frankly, you could evergreen or ever known is a term that we've used before of what does that imagery or asset, because remember on the diagrams of capture, store, deliver, the bottom arrow, reusability. How would it be in terms of driving efficiency that you don't go build a model over again that you already have built once, right? In terms of, or at least do the delta on the capability. This is where we believe the vision needs to go. It is not where we are today. Data quality. Oh, this is my other favorite story. How many people have been approached and say, hey, your data quality is really bad. You can't do anything because your data quality is bad. I'm the only one? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Now, it's interesting is I usually, when I get into this conversation, I say, hey, talk to the hand. Stop. Because what I will say is that from a capability, our data quality is the lowest data quality that I can still execute the current business practice. And I'll challenge anybody in the room that says they are doing anything different. So fundamentally, the issue is not, oh, your data quality is bad. What have you done to change the work practice to ensure that your data quality is accurate? And if you start that conversation with, well, I have this whole office in India, right? It'd be like, okay, guys, this is an example of, not changing the way we work and just throwing what I'd say more horsepower at it. But let's get to why, if I use reality first, engineering data, AI, ML, why aren't we using that to get to where, quite frankly, you'll never have to go through this issue of red line to black line and P&IDs because I can 100% verify that your P&IDs match what's in the field. And even more, I can even get it to where it's suggesting to you as, hey, should you be updating your P&IDs? The concept of this is built on those same 5 pillars. Open, interoperable ecosystem to allow this capability. And I think, to me, this is an area where data quality, as I look through my crystal ball, at some point we're going to stop talking about data quality because we will have changed the way we've worked that will ensure data quality is part of the work process. And lastly, can we make the workplace safer? How many people have ever been burned, either from the previous data quality of the bleeder that got left open or the flange that had the blind in it after you've started your commissioning? Again, am I the only one that has been part of that? These are painful lessons that you go through. And what do we typically do? Oh, let's inundate, with our workers with more checklists, check the checkers so you can check again, right, in terms of activity. And it goes round and round. How about we actually give our workers what they need? The same thing that you need if you were coming here from out of town, using mobility, call it AR, XR, driving or delivering content that you need when you need it. So, again, why, if I were reality first, and I have an imagery, and I'm doing energy isolation in the field, providing people the capability that, quite frankly, you get down to where I'm actually helping it be a safer workplace, right? These are just of examples. Now, I'm looking at the eyes here. There are some people going, okay, I know what my next acquisitions are, right? I'm buying. Like, this is not an area, I think it was mentioned earlier, this is an area where it takes an ecosystem. And what we want to do is make sure we reward people for being functionally excellent in the work they do in an open ecosystem that delivers value for all of us. So, what is my ask? My ask is really, quite frankly, continue to support the Open Asset Digital Twin Working Group. I have a number of colleagues, and as part of that, that will be presenting in the afternoon. Please join in, listen in terms of what do we believe the next steps are towards that future. This is going to take this entire room to collaborate in between suppliers and owners. And you have heard me say this on stage many and many times. The key principle. Are we going to separate hardware from software? Consistent with the messages of OPA, and then we're going to expand upon that and really get to where are we separating software from data. Because to me, that is the next big horizon that is going to accelerate us transforming as an industry. And I think this is the area where I would say, when in the models of AI, agentic deployment, this is an area where we need to be able to containerize and deploy them in discrete, what I would say, containers to drive value. And all of this, we believe, is a part of the vision of the Open Asset Digital Twin. And my ask of everybody here is to be a part of that future. Thank you.